Hello, I'm Michael Conniff. I am here with Ski TV. That's at skitv.tv. And this is our Ski the Dream segment, as we like to call it. We are joined by James Gambrill, the CEO of the Mountain Trade Network in the United Kingdom. We're going to talk about what's going on, as we like to say here, across the pond. You may not like that, but that's how we refer to it. And welcome, James. Great to have you.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I got your name right, James
Yep, absolutely.
Gambrill. Okay.
Yep.
And my first interview was with Jeff, the CEO of Ski TV, and so you're our first external. But I can see from your, looking at your CV on LinkedIn that you have spent really your entire life in the ski industry. I want to circle back to that a little bit and start because I think you probably know the industry as well as anybody in Europe. And I want to start with your new venture,
hmm
Mountain Trade Network. You're most closely associated, I believe, with Listex
Yep,
and
that's right.
SASTEX, the big trade shows that you've been a part of. So take me into your decision to create Mountain Trade Network. Why did you see the need? And maybe you can briefly describe it for our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I mean, Mountain Trade Network is a network for everybody working in the mountain industry globally,
Mhm.
both for summer and for winter. As you mentioned, my background is all mountain industry, mainly winter, mainly snow sports, but I've had some time in the summer as well. And the idea is it is a connection, a way to connect, taking aspects of existing kind of business to business social media platforms like LinkedIn, taking virtual events that obviously have exploded in popularity in the last 12 months, and things like the video call that we're having right now, and kind of putting them all in one place and using the expertise that we have from running our live events, which connect people on a face-to-face basis, which hopefully we will get back to at some point in the future. So understanding how those work and trying to replicate that online, and make it year round. And actually, this is a pre-pandemic business, although it might not seem like it because the timing was so kind of fortuitous, I guess, in that sense. But as you mentioned, we're known for kind of Listex and Sastex, which are big business to business trade events that we run in London. We've run those since 2012, so we're kind of almost at that 10-year point. And they bring together everybody working in the mountain industry, so tour operators, journalists, mountain resorts, airlines, transfer companies, ski schools, ski instructors, whoever it might be, and they bring them together for 2 days of kind of informal networking, pre-arranged meetings, and what we call the forum, where we have speakers from both within and outside the mountain industry, and they come
So
and
just
speak.
because I know a lot of people will want to know about that show, the show is going to go on. And I think
Yep,
there's also one called Listex Luxury. Is that still on
that's
in
right.
June?
Yeah, so we launched. So Listex was the first one back in 2012. We launched Sastex 3 years ago, which is our summer alpine sports exchange. We launched Listex Luxury last year. We hoped to run it live last year. Obviously, that didn't happen. So it's scheduled at the moment for end of June, here in the UK. Now we are at the moment on a roadmap in the UK where we're told that we may have an end to all restrictions 21st of June. So that's kind of 7 days before our trade show. So
I understand.
um,
I understand Boris Johnson is playing tennis, the prime minister. So
that's
that's
right. Yes,
probably
yes.
as good a sign as any.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was our kind of first day of relaxation. So, things are a little bit different here now. They're taking a cautious approach. There hasn't been any advice on business to business events. Last September, they were talking about business events for up to 30 people. Um, and then that was kind of, taken away from us. So we're obviously being cautious. We understand that a lot of people probably won't be ready to travel anyway, even if they can by June. And there's obviously still a lot of restrictions on international travel. So the plan for Listex Luxury in June this year is certainly to run a virtual event. If there is appetite for people to get together and that's permitted, then we might do that to a limited extent in London. So we might, for example, get some of the UK mountain journalists and tour operators together for a day. And then we can connect in with speakers and other attendees, via technology as we're doing now. So it might be our first hybrid event. It might end up being totally virtual. We will see. We will see.
And what is the schedule? What is the schedule for ListX?
So our next ListX event is in May. So that will clearly be a purely virtual event. So we always run ListX twice a year, once in May, once in September. May's a little bit of a kind of one, in a normal year, May is a little bit of a kind of look back at the season gone. Obviously, as you know, in most of Europe, we haven't had a ski season this year, very sadly. So it's going to be very different this year. But May, we kind of look back a little bit on what's happened and we kind of look forward as well. September is very much focused on the next season. The May event will be totally virtual. The September event, we're hopeful to get back to a live event. We know the appetite is there. We speak to our regular attendees, all the time. They're telling us that if they can meet face to face, they would love to. That's really important to them. We will always have a virtual element, I think, from now on at all of our events, so that we give that flexibility to people. But I think if we can get back live in September, we will. But
you'll give it a shot. I think you've got a pretty good chance of making that happen based on how.
I hope so. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I want to circle back to the ski industry stuff, but let's keep our focus on Mountain Trade Network for a second. It's a platform. It involves the virtual and the in-person, and it serves and brings together B2B, business to business, in the mountain industry, the mountain community. Now, how do you define that? Obviously, you have resorts and hotels and people like that, but how do you broadly define your business in the mountains?
So we define it as anybody working in the mountain economy. And just to quickly answer your previous question, the reason that we started Mountain Trade Network, and as I say, it was kind of, the birth was pre-pandemic, was because we had our successful live events, but a lot of people were saying to us they'd love to come, but they were just either out of their price range or out of their kind of time allowance to travel. So we wanted to create something where wherever you were in the world, you could participate without traveling. So, obviously one of the kind of the hallmarks of the mountain economy and the mountain industry is that people are often in fairly remote destinations. So to travel to a big city for a conference is time and money. So the idea of having the virtual network was to allow everybody, from, a huge conglomerate like Vail Resorts down to an independent ski instructor or mountain guide, maybe working in a remote area, it's as easy to connect for both of those. So that was the reason behind it. Obviously, when the pandemic started, then the fact that you could meet virtually was even more useful. But we can see this as continuing post-pandemic because of the way that the mountain industry is obviously.
Sure. And I want to say we're talking to you on March 30th, 2021. So we're right at the end of the North American and European ski seasons, and we're way ahead of the seasons to come down under in other parts of the world like Chile and South America and Australia and New Zealand. But what is a typical audience? You've done this since 2011, I think you said, at ListX. So who if someone were to come, who would be there? Let's assume real people in real places.
So typically, I mean, it's a broad range, but certainly, mountain resorts and destinations. So both from Europe, US, Canada, and sometimes further afield. So, representatives from mountain resorts, hoteliers, so hotel owners, whether that be family owned or more corporate hotels, tour operators, of course. And again, primarily from the UK for our live events, but now we have tour operators from Australia, from South America, from Eastern Europe, from all over. And then, as I say, a lot of independent businesses working in the mountain economy. So we're very focused on making this available. So, could be an independent ski instructor, could be a small ski school with kind of 2 or 3 instructors, could be a ski rental company, again, maybe with just one store. It could be, we have a lot of small businesses that maybe kind of, have a small retail shop, either online or physical in the mountains. The mountain economy is enormous. We've estimated it as well over $100 billion when you add all the elements together, and just incredibly disparate. it's everything from, as I say, that individual ski instructor to a family-owned hotel to an enormous, ski company that owns 5 or 6 huge ski resorts. So it's an
Right.
enormous mix, and I think the great thing is that we make it accessible to everybody. And so, if you are an individual ski rental shop, you could meet with an enormous tour operator, and you might be able to make that work as a business in that particular resort. So,
Right.
yeah,
So
we
it's
try and just kind of open up those opportunities for everybody.
so B2B businesses, large and small. You're
Yeah.
talking globally. So let's think about that number, $100 billion for the entire mountain economy worldwide, I assume, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk now about the impact of the pandemic, maybe particularly in Europe because you're so close to it there in the
Yeah.
UK. So many resorts have not opened. What percentage of resorts actually did open in Europe?
So it very much depends country by country. So in Switzerland, pretty much 100% of resorts have opened, mostly just for Swiss visitors because there were obviously restrictions on international travel. But Switzerland has been open. Then if we go to the other extreme, Italy has pretty much been completely closed. So no resorts in Italy that I'm aware of have opened at all,
Mhm.
either for international or for domestic visitors. They've been shut. Austria is a little bit mixed. It depends on the region of Austria. So some resorts in Austria have been opened, again, mostly for locals. Austria had a rule that you could only ski at your local mountain, so you couldn't even travel within Austria to ski at different resorts. You sort of could ski
Oh, okay.
locally, and not really any international visitors. And some resorts in Austria actually took the kind of economic decision that it wasn't worth opening unless they had
Mhm.
enough kind of international
And
visitors.
how bad was the damage? The carnage from having to close. How many resorts actually shut their doors for good? Did that happen much?
Not as we know of yet. So,
Oh,
in terms of resorts, I'm not aware of any yet that won't reopen. Some have certainly, clearly taken a big hit. And just as in the US, there is a huge variety of resorts in Europe, from enormous resorts down to kind of ones with 1 or 2 lifts. Certainly, sadly, we've lost some companies. We've lost some tour operators here in the UK. I'm sure we will lose smaller businesses in the Alps, restaurants, family-run hotels, and those sort of things. France has been really interesting because they have mostly opened the resorts, but without any ski lifts running. So the government banned ski lifts from being able to run, but the resorts could open. So there's been this explosion in ski touring. It's been remarkable how many people have travelled to French resorts and enjoyed a holiday there without ski lifts being open. I don't think anyone, including the resorts themselves, thought that would work, but
yeah.
to an extent, it has. Not as busy as a normal season, but some have been up to kind of 50% occupancy at peak
Wow,
weeks
that's kind of
without lifts.
surprising. Isn't that funny?
It's
Isn't that,
amazing,
yeah,
right?
surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, people love the mountains.
People love it, and it's introduced a lot of new people as well. That's the one of the small number of positives we can take from this, is it has encouraged new people to visit the mountains, who
Yeah,
obviously we hope will come back.
yeah.
So it's a very mixed picture in Europe depending on the country. And I think again where we fit in is, if you're a big company with deep pockets, you could choose to kind of, hunker down for this winter, not operate, kind of, save your costs, save your spend, and be kind of ready to fight another day, I suppose, be ready to reopen. But obviously, a lot of smaller businesses just don't have those kind of resources. So they are the ones that really need to open, ideally for this summer if they can. And that's also another area we've seen changing, is a lot of resorts planning to open for the summer, in a way that they don't normally, because they've got a
Okay.
chance of recovering some business. So, yeah, we're going to see again a very big impact on the industry, according to the type of businesses, and it's those small businesses again that we're really keen to try and help as much as we can.
And I recently, I want to point out your website is mountaintradenetwork.com,
.com.
for people who want more information about what you do and how to take part in the shows. Um, what I guess my big question is, the pandemic is a hammer blow to everybody. What you had a interesting piece on your website about never let a good crisis be wasted,
Yep.
and what we can learn from this. Let me take that idea, but maybe turn it slightly and say, What is going to be different about the ski industry? I mean, like permanently different moving forward, if anything.
So yeah, so it's interesting. So we part of what we do is we do a lot of market research. So we survey consumers regularly. At the moment, mostly in the UK, but we're looking to expand that globally. So we've been asking consumers regularly, their thoughts on this winter and beyond. And one of the most interesting aspects of that, looking at next winter and beyond, was how many measures skiers expected to stay in place or wanted to see stay in place. So things like limited numbers on mountains, even social distancing in lifts, obviously things like wearing face masks, which is kind of normal for skiers anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the differences that we definitely are seeing is when we ask consumers kind of to rank what's most important about a ski resort, when they're choosing a ski resort, what matters most. The two things that have always come up have been kind of size of ski area and resort altitude. But what we're seeing now as well is how busy the slopes are. And one of the interesting things we've seen in the last few years with the increase in lift technology is, ski resorts have got so efficient at getting people up the mountain that in many resorts, kind of, those uplift figures have gone huge, and waiting times at lifts have been very small. Of course, the flip side of that is there's more people skiing down at any one time because there's
Right.
less people who are waiting on the lifts. And, that wasn't a problem pre-pandemic because people kind of accepted that was the case. But I think again now, we're all conscious of our kind of our personal space. And although skiing is naturally a kind of socially distant sport,
Mhm.
people still want that space on the mountain. So it's going to be interesting to see, two things. One, will we see a rise in popularity of less busy, less well-known resorts that offer kind of just more space for people? And secondly, will we see any resorts as they've had to do this season because of regulations, limit the numbers on the mountain? So, you do
Mhm.
get a few small specialist resorts, and there's a few in Colorado where they limit the numbers of people to kind of enhance that experience for those that are there.
Sure.
Will we see that be more widespread in larger resorts, and can they make that work in a commercial model? You're a ski resort, you want to sell lift tickets. The idea of kind of limiting the number that you sell is quite, it's quite an anathema really to that business model. But if that's what the consumer is demanding because they don't want to be crowded with other people on the slope, that might change. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. I think the other thing that's come out is, we've been pushing for a long time for this kind of four-season resort model. There are some resorts that have done a really good job of becoming four-season resorts. Some of them have done it for years. Places like, Chamonix and Zermatt in the UK that are busier in the summer than they are in the winter. And other resorts, they are completely winter focused, and in the summer they pretty much shut up shop and they wait again. And it's been obvious through the pandemic that those resorts with more of a four-season model, of course, have benefited because most of them could open last summer and at least they could get some revenue in. And I think there was awareness that kind of being reliant on a business model that only allows you to draw revenue kind of 4 months out of 12 was probably dangerous. But this has really brought that home. So I think we're going to see an explosion in at least the efforts of resorts worldwide to drive that summer market, and to spread out their revenue across the year.
What about sort of an ancillary question is you go to a great resort and typically like a Jackson Hole or Aspen or any place like that, they will have some component of they will have cross country skiing available.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always an afterthought, or it feels like an afterthought. It's never the central focus, nor should it be, probably. But do you anticipate, ski resorts getting more into the marketing of snowshoeing, of cross country skiing, sledding, even things like that,
Yeah.
to become much more of a winter sports provider
I,
than?
I I think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I mentioned France this year and operating without ski lifts, and obviously a big part of their offering has been exactly that. Because the skiing was only part of it because you didn't have lifts. They've been pushing snowshoeing and cross country skiing,
Yeah.
and even things like ice diving and all kinds of other activities. And they have been fantastically popular. One of our regular members, Catherine Cosby, who runs the Mountains for All foundation, expressed it as they found the toys at the back of the toy cupboard, which I thought was great. So they've kind of, these things were always there, right? They always existed, but suddenly resorts have gone, oh, there's all these other amazing things we can do, and actually maybe this is the year to try it. So I think, I'd like to see that happen. I think again that's a more sustainable business model. Obviously, it means things like if you have a bad weather day, there's things you can maybe go and do rather than get up in the high alpine. Um, but I think it's also going to be interesting to see how consumer behaviour does change post pandemic. You know, not just in the ski industry, obviously, but across everywhere. You know, how
Yeah.
much are we going to go back to kind of doing what we did before, and how much is going to permanently change? So,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think there will be an increase. Will most skiers still go to a ski resort and spend most of their time going up a lift and down a mountain? Yeah, I suspect they probably
Probably,
will,
yeah.
but I'm interested to see.
And I can't let it go by without asking, what is ice diving? I've never heard of that.
So ice diving. So there's a few places in Europe. Certainly, Teen in the French Alps has a lake up at 2,100 meters.
Mhm.
So you literally, drill a big hole in the ice and dive down. Actually,
You
the old
dive
village.
in? You literally dive in?
Dive in, yeah,
Oh, jeez.
dive in, and it's. I mean, the new village of Teen, the ski resort, is at 2,100 meters. The old village of Teen was flooded, where they built a dam for hydroelectric power, flooded the old village of Teen. So you can actually now ice dive down and swim around and explore the old village
The
under
old
the
village
ice.
underwater. You know, there have been
Yeah,
several very good horror movies with that idea where
yeah,
the
it's
the town's been flooded. I'm serious. It's like a horror movie motif. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But now, I want to talk a little bit more about you. When was were you able to go skiing this winter?
Not yet is my answer. I've not given up hope. I've been skiing since 1984, and if I don't ski this winter, it will be the first winter. It'll be the first year I've missed. I missed a winter season in 99, 2000 because I was traveling, but I lived in Australia for a year and I had the
Uh-huh.
chance to ski a season in Thredbo. So
Yeah.
I kind of count that as I've still skied every year.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go away this year. It's just not been possible. I
How many
haven't given up hope yet.
what's a good or typical year for you in terms of days skiing?
Uh, Now it's probably 3 or so weeks a year. I've got three young children who have now been skiing for kind of 5 years, so we're kind of at the point now where we can go more because they can enjoy it more.
Oh,
So
that's
I
great.
think I've gone down the kind of the lowest point in
Yeah.
terms of number of days, and now it's hopefully going up again.
And
I think like many, there's an appetite to catch up next year, right?
and
So
that's yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. And you're in England. Where
yeah.
do you like to go to ski from England? What are your go-to places?
I mean, I'm really lucky having worked in the industry that I've kind of skied all over.
Hmm.
I mostly now ski in Europe. My children did learn to ski in Whistler, just again through kind of fortune of having some business dealings in Whistler at the time. But now we tend to stick to Europe. Our go-to place for family holidays is a little resort called Dreisinen in the Italian Dolomites, which is fantastic. It's not massive, but it's big enough for a week's holiday. Beautiful mountains, amazing food, great people. And I hadn't heard of the resort until they came to Listex, so it just kind of shows that it works. They
Oh,
came to
good.
Listex. We've been going there for the last 3 years, and it's wonderful. Yeah, it's
And what
awesome.
is spell that for us? That resort?
It's Dreisinnen, so it's the Italian Südtirol, so it's an Austrian German name, even though it's in Italy. So Drei, Drei, three in German, and then Zinnen, which means peak. So there's a famous three peaks kind of rock
Okay.
formation. And my partner's from Germany, so it's perfect for her because she can speak the language. So
I love the inside tip. That's great. Now let me talk a little bit, or ask you a little bit about your. You've spent your whole life in skiing, as far as I can tell, or skiing and travel. Um, and you mentioned Whistler, and you were involved with something called the Whistler Experience
mhm.
not too long ago. But I guess my question to you is how you could have done all kinds of things in your life, right?
Yep, yep.
Why this?
Um, well, I got into it. So I studied astrophysics at university. Believe it or not, I kind of finished university and thought I
You're
don't
as
think
high as you can get now with the mountains. So,
exactly,
so there you
exactly.
go.
I don't think I was cut out for a career in astrophysics, and I'd spent a lot of time at uni organizing university ski trips for sort of 250 students. So it was
Wow.
kind of like, well, what else have I learned in the last 3 years? Oh, I enjoyed doing that, and I did a good job. So I
Yeah.
went to work for the Ski Club of Great Britain organizing holidays. Um, I think once you have spent a certain time in the mountain industry, it kind of pulls you back in. So, after the financial crisis of 2008-9, which was the last kind of, big impact on our
Yeah.
industry, I decided to start a marketing agency, and I deliberately didn't give it a snow sports name because I thought, I don't want to limit myself to the mountain industry. I'm going to start a marketing agency. Within 2 years, I had 20 clients. Every single one of them was a ski company or a mountain company. So I kind of thought, okay, let's stop fighting this. This is clearly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And since then, I've embraced it. Yeah. So I mean, I just love it. I love the travel element. I love meeting people from all around the world. I love the complexity of the industry. The summer and the winter, the business challenges that appear. I think it's a fascinating industry, and there's nowhere I'm happier than on a mountain. So, why not embrace it?
Well, skiing and snowboarding are amazing sports, but they're typically very difficult businesses, aren't they?
Yeah, they are indeed. Yeah.
You really have to, and throw in a pandemic in the middle, and you've really got a challenge. Well,
sure.
I want to thank you for sharing that on our show, Ski the Dream. I got to keep repeating that. So I remember it, on Ski TV, CEO of the Mountain Trade Network at mountaintradenetwork.com, and a font of information about all things skiing globally. And we look forward to staying in touch and doing this again and hearing more. Maybe we'll do it in March 2022, and we'll see if we've all survived. That would
be great. That would be great.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye. For the first presentation. Thank you. This looks is really important because it is the only B2B focused event in the snow sports industry, and it's that opportunity to sit down with a tour operator, with a resort, with a ski school, with an airline, and have a proper 20-minute conversation with an action at the end of it. So we've added to our forum, which is our thought leadership presentations. We've added the knowledge labs this year, which is one-to-one with marketing and business experts.
The speakers have been great, giving us information about kind of what's to come with the season and what people are doing.
Today we were talking about what technology has done to society, how it's shifted our power and perspective, and how that can really influence businesses when they want to grow.
A new breed of leader that looks like they're a tech leader, but they're not.
So the biggest thing we were kind of looking for was mentorship. They set up this really kind of cool feature, which is kind of like the Dragon's Den, where we get to pitch. And they obviously get to say if they're in or out, and we got a few yeses. Going to be talking to them in the future about kind of developing the brand.
It's been great because it's really easy to use system where you can totally access who you want to see and prioritise the people from the list of attendees that are really important to us.
I was surprised by the number of journalists actually. I've really enjoyed catching up with media contacts and also meeting people from magazines.
It's the first year we've come and being media partners is brilliant. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for us all to share ideas. Really everything from distribution points for the magazine through to PR ideas, partnerships generally, and an insight into where everything's going this season.
It's a good chance to catch up and talk about difficulties that we may have had and actually talk face to face.
Valley has sponsored Listex because we are a partner of the Snow Center. It's the perfect occasion just to push harder on that partnership.
So the whole event has been, it's been awesome. Great market leaders here.
We kind of want to give exposure to our company to the ski industry, and there's probably no better place to do it.
You need to be here. The businesses that are here are the ones that are going to help you partner and progress. The knowledge base that's here in this room is evidently immense. So make sure if you're in the ski business, you get along to Listex.